Let me adjust the lighting a little bit. I think that's good. What about now? Maybe right there. Anyway, I titled this video Muslim. And the reason I had titled it Muslim is um, to have some clarity. I think that when I had decided not to do a lot of videos in deep, meaning like we'll go into a lot of detail. I'm trying to explain. I want to be angry or belligerent or upset, trying to explain it and going through all here it is, the colors and how that kind of stuff. I thought that it was not fitted for me wanting to organize for business. Collectively, there would have been a lot of people who may have seen different videos and may have misinterpreted something, or they didn't have the clarity, or that their misunderstanding or their understanding was a little different than the things that I would convey, or some of the things and materials that they have listened to over a period of years and time. Um, so it was like, well, some things, it was just a little um, sticky. Let's just be honest, sticky. That would be a good word, sticky. Um, because we are a multicultural people, multi-ethnic people. And then when we begin to look at religion, we have the understanding that with religion, we are also a multi-religious culture of people. So I titled it Muslim because I want some clarity and some understanding. I want to provide that um, to some people who may want to know the identity or the characteristic of Irene Ratliff. Okay, let's put it like that. Um, First, I'm going to say that when we look at the world, right? Before people had learned, let's say, other forms of religion, it seemed like the vast majority of them are Muslim, or that the practice was Islam. When you look at um, Asia, Africa, Europe, Russia, Canada, America, what it was is that during a certain time of the year, there were conquests and crusades, and where the explanation about Christianity and its existence, and then the transformation of people. And we see that readily today. Okay? So you'll see people who have been converted to Christianity, just as well as you see people being converted into Islam. And then you have people who say, well, listen, I study Buddhism, or I study Confessionism, or Judaism, all of that. Some people may say, well, listen, voodoo and all of that kind of stuff. When we read the book, right? It's like one book to another book. You need one book to understand another book. If we're looking at just pictorials, right? Just pictorials. Then we see that the union of man and woman, and then the lineage of family. So I have decided collectively that my conversation about religion is on the union of man and woman, the union of man and woman. From that lineage comes offsprings, meaning children, okay? So if we look at the beginning of the book, if we're going to talk about Genesis, really to tell you the truth, the book really starts off with the family lineages. Other ones branch into the understanding about a family unit. So once a union becomes married, or that they have decided to organize something differently, then with that union becomes another book. Okay. Okay. So when we begin to see um, the different ones, and the reason I titled it like that is because when we look at, like I said, around the world, the vast majority of the people are Muslims. But then I'm like, well, how do you define that, right? It's beyond just saying, okay, I'm gonna put on a scarf. Some people just use that culturally as a dress. Okay, well, I'm gonna wear clothing all the way down to, a skirt all the time. Well, we have a lot of Christians that do that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna probably uh, rename this just to religion or to beliefs. Okay, so if people are looking at the opportunity to say, hey, they're a part of a religion or they're a part of a club, right? Now that's something that you're learning, okay? If somebody says, well, listen, it doesn't even matter. It's just so becomes so true. When I look at all the various books that we have on this earth, I realize that there's just so many different things to study. So when people take on the form to study something, okay, well, I'm going to learn how to speak Dutch. Now that I learn how to speak Dutch, right, I want to go into an environment where other people speak Dutch. Now, these people who speak Dutch and say there's similarities, I may see some things that are similar, like, hey, food, or a dance, or this, that, and the other. So now, culturally, we see some similarities. However, the language is different, the culture is different. What I have realized is that with people in their, let's say, beliefs and culture, is that the same thing? Is religion and culture and tradition the same thing? Now, if you want to take on an argument and say, well, listen, I think that, people have traveled and they don't know their self and their identity and this, that, and the other, then why would that be associated with religion? It wouldn't be associated with religion. It would have something to do with somebody who's trying to search for themselves. And then the question would be, what is it that you think that people are searching for? What is it that they think that they're missing? Okay? Now, them, us, we, those things that we think that we're missing. The question when you're asking people, well, what is it that you think that we should be looking for? Or what do you think things should be different? Now you having a group of people, right, that follow you, and then the things that you teach them, then why do you assume that it's lost or that whatever it is that you think is missing isn't there? Collectively, you'll be working on the cultural aspect of whatever it is that you think will be that identity or that characteristic to define who you are. Reiterating, my focus is on the union of man and woman. And so I created a name for it. And I know readily a lot of people say say, or Santi, right? To say yes. But say is simple. Say see. And the tone of Sae Sea, because when you think about the sea, it'd be like, oh man, there's a lot of fishes in the sea. It becomes so true. But a fish cannot swim without water. You can think about all the mammals that are inside the sea and the ocean. It becomes so true. No different than the sperm and the ovum. Now the union with man and woman, now you begin to see the things that they learned from when they were a child, right? Okay, another good point right here. Like I would listen to people talking about identity. And they say, well, listen, this is my government name. And I'm like, well, what government name is that? If your mama and your daddy gave you a name, it was not a government name. The name had meaning to them at the time. It becomes a government name when you decide to change your name and take it to the court and ask the court to change your name to something else because now you have to fill out the documents and then whoever it was that was processing the paperwork, that becomes now your government name. But when your mom and dad and grandma and grandpa and the great grands and the nieces and the nephews all was looking at mommy pregnant and here it is, a child was going to be born into the world, it became a name that was identified to the family and with the family. That would be including mommy. Mommy gave you the name, whatever the name was at the time that mommy gave it to you. The same thing with here it is lineage and searching, not even lineage to search your own name because the thing is that is your name, but I ain't gonna give you. Yes, I guess maybe perhaps you would have to search. Here it is, your family lineage. If the story was not retold. Now, during the time we went through a very big name change, aliases and stuff like that. Some people was short names, long names. Matter of fact, where people were using aliases like I'm Miss Chocolate, and then people were identifying with me with Miss Chocolate. There were other people that said, "Well, listen, my name is Williams Rodriguez Sabon Frank Thomas." It's like, wow, you got all those names, and it was the only last names. They were attaching four or five different last names because they wanted people to know who they were. And I was just like, that seemed like a whole lot of last names. There wasn't hyphen names like they were married. You know what I mean? It was just a whole lot of names. Then you had a lot of people who went into one name, one last name, and then that's no different than some of the stories that we heard. Well, we could talk about saving. We could talk about saving. But when you begin to look at one thing or the other, now I can speak about one subject of one thing or the other, but as I had said readily, that some material, my thought, is that when you start identifying certain things to certain people, it becomes more than me just talking on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or any of the social medias to be like, okay, I have my popular opinion about whatever I just said. Like I just saying it right now. But you know what I'm saying. The union with man and woman, they tell us that it's sacred. Miscommunication went into promiscuity. Someone else trying to deliver us the thought about loyance and saying, yet here it is, verily, the woman, her womb being blessed to have more than one child. Glory. Some women are blessed and have multiple children. And a man who's committed. Oh, well, what about one thing, one other thing? Now that goes into another conversation about polygamy. But then it's that union one. Man, his love for his wife, and wife for her love for her husband. It explains that to us inside of them telling us about a history inside of the book. There was more than one history. And then when we begin to think about monarchy or patriarchy, that's a whole nother conversation. But to look at now, here it is, the family unit, the nuclear family. You begin to see what? Mom, dad, brothers, sisters, aunts and uncles, and grandma and grandpa. I encourage people, including myself, because we get so preoccupied or occupied with life, right? But to know your family tree, write it down. Matter of fact, I apologize. Um, I did not give the family tree for Mother's Father's Day. Normally I do it, but I didn't do it this year. I'll try to think about it or do it, rarely before the December season or the Oktoberfest season. But it was like, yeah, for real. I would give people the family tree for them to spend just that amount of time, Glory, to write down their names. And then those people who have changed their name, put your other name in the parentheses, right? So that your children will be able to follow who their grandparents were, their great aunties, and all those other kind of people, okay? From there will be no reason for us to think so far in a distant land, someplace else, whether we're talking about Canada or talking about Antarctica, Russia. The point is that unless people have migrated and we just knowingly know that, there would be no reason for us to think that we should detach ourselves as if we're spiritually lost. We become, for real, it becomes a fragment, glory, of something in that union that we will have with ourselves and then the union that we will have with our mate. Okay? So now when you begin to look at the cistern and the hydrant, now you see here it is the love that manifests. And inside that love that's manifesting, here it is, you have a union. And with that union becomes child. With that union becomes progress, glory. With that union becomes, as my aunt would say, baby, relationship is like a corporation. That's how she would say it. Baby, relationship, marriage, companionship, it's a corporation. You gotta build on that. That's like for real. When you think about it, you gotta think about all your bills. You gotta think about wanting to have more, your lifestyle coming up, doing this, doing that, making sure here it is, the kids have more than what you had, or you trying to teach them about one thing or the other, lifestyles, doing this and doing that. It becomes a business right there with your own children. Anything new that you want to bring to your parents or whatever, now that's something that you have learned and you're bringing inside the home that where culturally or traditionally, when you were growing up outside of, okay, you just go ahead and go to school and get the basics. And then you say, okay, when, and I read this book or this little pamphlet. Oh, okay, I went to the library. I read all these different kind of things. Oh, okay, well, I decided I don't want to eat no chicken no more. Okay, I decided that okay, I ain't gonna eat no more sugar or no more flour, all that because you read the health book or whatever the case may be. And mama been cooking chitlins and all that other kind of stuff all this time and you've been enjoying it and you decide, I don't want that no more. Now they become a personal preference. It becomes a personal preference. Okay? All right, I'll come back. Matter of fact, I'm gonna retitle this and then I'll come back with this. I'll call this one not religion. I kind of started off with religion because we read the book, but I'll say, say, see, hydrant and cistern, the truth. Thank